There's no way that we're the only one in existence in all these universes, all these galaxies, and our planet is the only one. So
Absolutely.
you're betraying yourself if you think we're the only ones in existence.
Yes.
Somewhere out there, there's another planet just like ours. There's probably another
Hmm.
you walking around that looks exactly like you. So a
Right.
lot of these movies that talk about parallel universes, that's probably true. There's
Yeah.
no way that we're the only ones here.
Right.
No way.
Right.
But that also comes with you not constricting your mindset to just what you're told, and you're doing research over what you're being led to see. And everything you're being led to see is also not real. So you have to be able to study and show thyself approved.
Yes.
This
Yes.
takes me back to, it used to always be said, oh, King James is the only one you're supposed to read. King James is the only one you're supposed to read. I read all different versions of the Bible to get to fill in, as you said, to fill in the gaps. I read the Christian Standard Bible. I read the King James Bible. I read the that verse I read came from the Holman Christian Standard Bible. I read Bibles from 1800s because I know that the scriptures have been changed
Right.
throughout time.
Right.
So that's where the study and oh my goodness, salutations and blessing to all who are out there in hell out on no land. I just want to say that it is a truly an honor and a blessing to be able to do this podcast, this episode once again, because this is a series that I do every year. And it's not often that I get a chance to talk about a little grace and mercy. And today I got two topics that, we don't talk about a lot: betrayal and forgiveness, and we're going to just let the conversation take us wherever the conversation take us. But first, let me introduce my guest. But I don't really call her a guest no more, because when you enter the house of the Lord, you're not a guest if you go to another house of the Lord, because you've already been to the house of the Lord. So when you've entered the house of Tedyism, you're not a guest when you've already been to one house. She's been on one of my other podcasts, The Book I Read. Make sure y'all check out The Book I Read podcast. Now she's traveled over to the Hell I Don't Know Land podcast. So she's starting to become a regular. So that's why I said I don't even call her a guest. I'm just going to introduce to you all someone who lays foundations for people to be able to get their thoughts out. She's a mother, she's a friend, she's a mentor, she's a person who walks in her own footsteps, because that is what God laid for her to do. And she follows the word that is put in front of her. I give to you all Dr. Nyisha Davis. Miss Davis, it is good to see you once again. How's everything been going for you?
It's going very well. I am pleasured and I'm honored to be on this platform with you.
You know how this goes. You know what the second question is. How are you doing mentally?
Mentally, I'm doing very well. We just came from, well, we just had Uniquely You last weekend, and it was phenomenal. It was way more than what I expected. It was a birthing, I was being obedient and did it because God told me to, but He really blessed my heart, my soul, my body, my mind. So it was more than what I had expected. So, yes, mentally, not tired. I'm in a healthy place, kind of like in shock still, if that makes any sense. Just enjoying the new lifestyle.
Oh yeah, we talked about the uniquely experience on the other format. So give the people a little innuendo, open the window a little bit, and tell them what that uniquely experience is all about.
Okay, so Uniquely You is all about everyone individually coming into their full purpose, your uniqueness. Everyone is graced to do a specific thing and nobody can do it like you. So Uniquely You is a ministry where God had taken me through the process to understand who I am without anyone else being involved, even though He does send people to pour into our lives and to bring us into different spiritual spaces and maturity and have the God conscious. But without putting anyone else in the relationship with you and God, just being who He created you to be, no matter how crazy it looks to anybody else, and to just love on yourself first, love who you are, love everything about you, and accept the beauty of you, male or female. particularly I speak to more women than men, so I know how it feels to go through the struggle of not loving oneself, rejection, frustration, and all of that. But uniquely you is all about you being birthed into your true spiritual identity.
That's amazing. I love the concept. You said it went better than what you expected. How many people were you expecting to be there versus how many people actually showed up?
So my expectation, and this is why I say better than I expected, because better than I expected does not always mean numbers. Better than I expected is the vision that God gave you, and it's superseding that spiritually. We always prepare for more, so we always make sure we create space for more. So I had wanted about 100 people to show up, and so God was like, "I'm gonna send the people," and everybody was like, "Nyisha, who's supposed to be there is gonna be there." It was phenomenal. About half of that came, but do you know the whole uniquely you was all about my spiritual birthing?
Hmm.
No lie.
It's funny how that happens.
It was, I'm like, I'm just want to do what God tell me to do. Like that's all I'm doing. And everyone who got literally just talked about, the God in me. And that is not what I wanted. I'm just being honest. I just wanted to bless people. It was a few people that came, praise and worship, and one young lady, she came and she spoke on what God had laid on her heart because she gave an encouraging words. But the word God gave me Friday night, someone says that the word that God gave me was revolutionary, and it would help Christians come out of religion and tradition. And I know that's what I'm called to. And so it was phenomenal. People received what they were supposed to receive. And then I'm just gonna give you a snippet of a testimony out of obedience.
Well, testified in.
My budget was $5,000. I capped it at 5,000. God, after I finished doing what God told me to do, the budget ended up being 10 grand. I'm just gonna be honest. I'm like, I don't know what is 10 grand coming from, but you told me to secure everybody you're telling me to secure, including a music artist from Atlanta, photographer, venue, everything. Long story short, the event, when she gave me the invoice, first of all, I checked into a hotel February 1st at the Hilton out of faith because God told me to. And so I stayed there from February 1st to February 11th, and God paid the bill. By the time I got ready to pay what I thought I needed to pay more, the lady said, "You already paid too much." So then won't he do it? And I cannot tell you how that happened. I'm just being honest. So then here we go Friday. The lady is like, "You have to have all of this paid, $6,100. I had a dream January 31st, well, the last week of January, that people were going to register, but it was one person that was going to be very significant for the conference. This is no lie. And I did all of this out of faith. I spoke Friday night. God did what he did. Friday night, deliverance, healing, restoration. Saturday at 10 a.m., we're going into the next sessions. I'm walking from my room to the ballroom, and they're like, "Dr. Davis, you have a balance, and it has to be paid by 12." This balance was $4,375.73. I didn't have that. All I know was what God told me. He told me that somebody was going to make sure that the conference was a success. I went into the ballroom like nothing was going on. My stomach was jacked up, like bad. So I went in and I sat down, and the intercessors were praying, and God spoke to me. He said, "Closed mouths don't get fed." Now, rewind a little bit. After I had the dream, I didn't tell anybody about the dream. A few days later, my apostle prophesied to me. He said, "God is already dealing with somebody's heart, and they're going to make sure that the conference is a success." So I held God to his word. I went until Saturday morning, and all I said was, I gave the piece of paper. The lady gave me the paper of the balance, and it was written in blue. I didn't pay attention to it at first. That's my spiritual code. And I gave it to my spirit sister that had flew from Texas. I knew she didn't have that money, but God told me to give it to her. Then he told me to go tell another lady. I knew she didn't have that money. And he said, "Those are the only two people I want you to tell. Now go up there and do what I told you to do." I went up there, and after the second speaker, I was standing there getting ready to play the second speaker's song. And as I was standing there, the event coordinator walked in the room. She said something I couldn't hear because I was in the spirit, and I couldn't hear it. And she said, all I heard was her say "full," and I said, "What?" She said, "It's been paid in full." Exactly what God told me. Somebody came and swiped their card and paid it in full. And I have no idea who it was. And I know it wasn't the two people that I had told. Obedience is what brings blessings. Everything that God gives us adds no sorrow. I don't know who it was. The hotel told me they could not tell me who it was, but I know that's what God told me to do. Because one, someone had already bought my ball dress that I had seen in the spirit realm. And he said, I just want you to keep looking at that dress so you will know you will put this dress on Saturday. And he did everything he told me he was going to do and more.
Okay, Cinderella, I see you. I see you.
So it was
Don't leave them glass slippers there.
It was just a blessing. It was a beyond my imagination spiritually. God allowed the music artist who came in, he prophesied into my life things I had never told anybody. Only what me and God had talked about up under the water, in the river, under the water. So it was phenomenal.
That's awesome. Looks like a little grace and
Yes.
mercy was extended your way. A little grace from God and a little mercy
Yes,
from
sir.
you for just following through. And that's what we have to do because remember I told you we have questions that other
Hmm.
people have answers to, and it looks like we have to stand pat to
Right.
search out those people to get those answers, and they're there. And a lot of times when God gives us that
Right.
direction, we just have to follow it. But a lot of but our betrayal in us is we want to know, well, why are you sending me over this way? Why do I got to go down the street? Why do I got to go all the way
Right.
around the block when I can just cut right through here? And so, it's that thought process that
Right.
gets us in the wrong direction. So it's that's
Yes,
an
sir.
amazing testimony. That's why I said, well, go ahead and testify then, because it's your testimony that helps
Right.
someone else see that the spirit is moving and the spirit works. Because without that, who are we to see that
Yes.
there's a miracle waiting on somebody in this room? And in that room, uniquely you was about everyone else, but you forgot the
Yeah.
main person that it was about, and it was uniquely about you. And so that's how sometimes when we're planning things, we forget about us when we're planning things.
Right.
God wanted to remind you that you're part of that too. Uh, I can see how easy it is to get sidetracked because when I'm doing all my stuff for all these podcasts that I have, and I'm like, okay, man, that'd be a great topic. Uh, man, let's talk about that. But once I get to talking about it with people, I'm also listening.
Right.
Like you said, I'm also listening to what I'm being told as I'm saying it to other people.
Hmm.
How can I help myself if I'm not listening to what I'm telling other people? So that is amazing to hear. I'm glad that happened. Let me get to this opening quote that I picked. I don't even really know why I picked this, but I like it, so I'm going to read it. It's from Isaiah 43 and 25. It says, "It is I who sweep away your transgressions for my own sake and remember your sins no more." What are your thoughts over that quote,
My thoughts
that script?
are, being God's child, I shouldn't be concerned about my rights and my wrongs. Not saying like holding myself accountable. Yes, we all hold
Mm,
ourselves accountable, but knowing I don't have to worry when I mess up in areas I think I messed up in. And the reason why I say I think is because tradition and religion told us certain things are sin. And God is saying, but if I want you to do it, it's not a sin. Like he wanted David to kill, even though he said, thou shalt not kill. But when David killed out of his own motive, then then it was a sin. So when it says that he remembers it no more, understanding his love for me, understanding that nothing I can do will stop him from looking at me the way he wants to look at me. We shouldn't sit and wonder all the time, is God mad at us about something? Or did I do something wrong today? If we do something wrong, he'll tell us. Tradition will hit us upside the head. Will his spirit convict us? Yes. And most of the time, his spirit convicts us when we're doing things out of our own selfish gain. But when we're doing what he
oh,
wants
yeah.
us to do, regardless if the world system or traditional religion thinks it's wrong, he doesn't convict us. He convicts us for when we get out of what he desires for us.
Hmm.
So when it talks about our transgressions and our sins, just knowing it's already forgiven and don't let it hold us back. Because if we're always counting how many times we did something that we think is wrong, or religion or tradition told us it was wrong, or the law told us was wrong, will never become what we're supposed to be. We'll never achieve our highest level of divinity in a Christ mindset, in our mindset, like Christ had for himself.
What is a Christ mindset? Because a lot of people that may not understand that, they hear that all the time. But what is a Christ mindset?
So it says, have a mind like Christ, right? We think our mind is supposed to be everything that Christ's mind was. That's not true. Christ's mind was the way Christ's mind was because Christ knew his purpose. Christ knew his purpose. Christ knew what he came to do. Christ knew, as God led him in this earth realm, as God's spirit led him, as his mother raised him, as his father raised him in the natural, as he went to Egypt, as he was ever wherever he was from 13, from the time he was born until the time he ascended, he knew exactly what he was supposed to be doing. What he didn't know, it was taught to him. Having a Christ-like mind, meaning understanding what you're here for and the spirituality of it all. Because if my mind was like Christ, I'd be focused on, if my mind was Christ's mind, I'd be trying to go to the cross. I am not trying to go to the cross because that's not my purpose.
It ain't everybody purpose.
My mind, yes, Christ's mind mean a God conscious mind, meaning you understand the God that you know who you are in the earth. You know what your purpose is as the God in the earth. You know what you came to do. You know what you're strategically supposed to do. You may get upset. Your body may cry just like Jesus did. But having that God conscious mind is knowing what you were put on the earth for, period.
And it's okay to not know that right off the bat. But going back to what you said earlier, you have to listen to understand what your purpose is. Right now, I'm gonna give y'all a break and tell you that this episode is being brought to you by the world famous Bobby Box tea cakes. Them things so good, they make you want to take a break in the middle of the podcast. And well, my dad done manufactured these tea cakes so good. I'm gonna tell you, world famous tea cakes. If your dad ain't cooking, you better go find somebody that is. This episode being brought to you by tea cakes. They're real moist too. They soft. I actually family member what tea cakes is. It come from a long line of people who used to cook back in the day. Mm, mm, mm. I got my bag. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. Get you some good old tea cakes. Get them tea cakes. I got my bag. Make sure you got you some water to wash them things on down.
Hello. You hear me?
And we're back, everybody. I got to shoot them ads. I got to shoot them ads. Whatever I got sitting next to me, that's going to be a commercial ad for my show. Because if my guest got something to take care of, I'm feeling tired. And today's ads is about TKs. If you missed it, go back and check it out. But now, since we're back from commercial, I got Miss Davis, Dr. Davis with me today. And today we're talking about a little betrayal and forgiveness. We're talking about grace and mercy. That should catch y'all up. If you want to hear everything else, rewind. Dr. Davis, finish what you were talking about. You're talking about a Christ mindset.
Okay, so with the Christ mindset is having a God consciousness. Christ was conscious of who he was. He was conscious of his purpose. He was conscious. Even when it goes back, you were talking about a betrayal. You said
Forgiveness.
betrayal and what else? Betrayal and forgiveness. His God conscious, Christ, God conscious, understood he was going to be betrayed. He knew that. He was like, I already know that's going to happen. And he knew he had to forgive those that betrayed him. I already know that's going to happen. Having a God conscious is understand people will betray you. People are going to hurt you, but you know your purpose. It's going to have your heart is going to, tremble sometime. You're going to get angry, but Jesus wasn't just here to just die for what we were doing wrong. And what was wrong is us operating in our natural, us operating by law. He was mad at the Pharisees because he said, y'all mad, y'all right here talking about law, and you can be doing miracle signs and wonders. That's what he was angry about. That's what Jesus came to die for. us not operating as gods. That's the sin, not the commandments. The sin is when we don't operate like him. He said, renew your mind. When we renew our mind, then
You
we
renew
have a
your
God
spirit.
conscious. If we don't renew our mind, we act like the Pharisees. That's what he was mad about.
I was watching uh there was a show on HBO Max, and it was called Ancient Kingdoms something. And a lot of them was destroyed. And I was like, man, Jesus said that in 3 days the kingdoms was gonna split. And a lot of things was destroyed around that time around the world. And I'm like, man, I wonder if that happened when he said it was gonna happen, just not in the location, but it was on a bigger, broad uh, area in multiple areas. What they would call now is earthquakes. So imagine that when the blood hit the ground, that set off a major earthquake over all of the worlds, and a lot of the things that are no longer visible, like Atlantis, a lot of these hidden cities, the earthquake that was supposed to happen sent all those places into destruction. That's a thought, because, like I said, I had questions about that, because when you watch a lot of the old videos that talks about Jesus' crucifixion and stuff like that, they only show the city. They don't show the world where it was happening. So I was watching that, and I'm like, 75, about 5,000 years ago. I'm like, I, that starts to correlate with me, and I'm like, man, that kind of adds up, because Jesus died, blood hit the ground, earthquake, temples split in two. Man, a lot of kingdoms disappeared around that same time, and nobody knows why. So that was my thought process when I'm watching a lot of that stuff. So I'm like, man, where's the answers to those questions? Where's the answers to those questions?
Yes, the Bible tells a storyline about it, right? And if we get stuck in the scripture, we won't know all of God. So whenever you were talking about, the history of the different kingdoms and different things that has been destroyed, God is outside of the Bible. We can't bring him into a book. Traditionally and religiously, don't read nothing else but the Bible. God says, my people perish for lack of knowledge. Okay? Everything is not in the Bible. It's not. All of history is not in the Bible. It's not. The Bible is a storyline that was put together out of thousands and thousands of scrolls. And that's what we were supposed to be studying. Is that what God wanted? He needed it for a specific dispensation of time. But now he's saying it is a storyline. That is not all me. Now y'all can handle more. And many people have been handling more before now, but Christians, tradition and religion shut them all down. You don't believe nothing but what's in the Bible. Well, what happened to the other 1,000 scrolls? What happened to the other great things that God did? We have to be able to accept that there is knowledge out there that God wants to have. Like the book of Enoch, I love it. You know why I love it? Because it's spiritual. It breaks down these boundaries. It takes away a lot of it takes out worrying about being betrayed, and it takes away the hardness of it being hard to forgive when you see the bigger picture of God.
I bought that for 2 years ago off Amazon. And the interesting thing about the extra books that's not part of the Bible is they're more expensive than the Bible, because they don't want people to be able to purchase them. For my listeners, they know when I do my history episodes, I have this quote. The reason they don't want it to be able to research, the reason they didn't want us to learn how to read and write, is because they didn't want history to be researched. And that's the quote I use on all of my history episodes. But I also what I don't add to that is, but they wasn't expecting me to come along, because I'm doing research to bring that history forward. That's why a lot of, not just Black people, African American people, all people, they didn't want to read and write. They kept a lot of people from learning how to read and write, because they didn't want the stuff to be researched, because that's why we can only see certain things from history. But if you do your research, you see, like Dr. David said, that the story is still there to be researched. When I was at the Museum of the Bible in D.C. in November, and before I got there, I found out that Rosetta Stone uncovered a lot of languages, but there's still a lot of languages from the Egyptian time frame that they still can't uncover because Rosetta Stone doesn't depict a lot of the older languages. So it's still a lot of things that still won't be discovered because they're still trying to break the code of that language. And that's all interesting to me because I'm like, this is 2024. I'm like, why is this so hard for us? And I think about it, I'm like, this is the betrayal part. I'm like, it's not hard because it's only hard because of the blanket that's in front of us, the sheet that's in front of us. And they keep hanging that sheet in front of you. As long as they hang that sheet in front of you, there's only a certain amount of people that move it to the side and try to see what's behind it. Those people disappear though. Every time those people disappear. So you have to learn how to do your own research. This is what I tell everyone. Do your own research. Even on my episodes, I say research shows me. Research has told me. Allegedly, this is what research says. Boom. Uh, if you don't like my research, do your own. But at least I'll give you the starting point for where you can start. What was you about to say?
It's important because, like, even whenever we read the Bible, it'll tell you that there are other books out there. It's a book of war. It talks about all of the wars. Book of Enoch. So we have to use our intelligence and our intellect. For so long, it's been suppressed, 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 and now it's time for us to use our intellect. I started reading. God told me to read the Bible years ago from the beginning. So I started in Genesis. So I started reading it literally as what it was saying. And it said Cain went and married another woman. Where does woman come from? I'm being honest. I said, okay, God, they taught us Adam and Eve was the first people. But then if you go a few chapters back, it says God made male and female in his image. So it lets you know it was some other people here before he made Adam and Eve. Because Cain can't go marry somebody that wasn't made.
Oh, I'm with you.
And who's to say? Adam and Eve probably had other kids before Cain and Abel. Fine. But still, we have to use common sense. When we read a book, what other book do we just take literally? None. We always like, oh, it got to be some more information. We can't be around here like some people say sheeple, just believing everything people say. You have to study to show ourselves approved to God, to our Creator. And whenever I say God, I'm not talking. Somebody might take this the wrong way. I'm not talking about God in the storyline of the Bible. I'm talking about God, the Creator. That's who I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the God that is minimized to a book. I'm talking about the God, the Creator of all. Because it's still too much for us to just say 66 books encompass all of God. I don't believe it. I just don't.
I'm with you because there's no way that we're the only one in existence in all these universes, all these galaxies, and our planet is the only one. So
Absolutely.
you're betraying yourself if you think we're the only ones in existence.
Yes.
Somewhere out there, there's another planet just like ours. There's probably another
Hmm.
you walking around that looks exactly like you. So a
Right.
lot of these movies that talk about parallel universes, that's probably true. There's
Yeah.
no way that we're the only ones here.
Right.
No way.
Right.
But that also comes with you not constricting your mindset to just what you're told and you're doing research over what you're being led to see. And everything you're being led to see is also not real. So you have to be able to study and show thyself approved.
Yes.
This
Yes.
takes me back to it used to always be said, oh, King James is the only one you're supposed to read. King James is the only one you're supposed to read. I read all different versions of the Bible to get to fill in, as you said, to fill in the gaps. I read the Christian Standard Bible. I read the King James Bible. I read the that verse I read came from the Holman Christian Standard Bible. I read Bibles from 1800s because I know that the scriptures have been changed
Right.
throughout time.
Right.
So that's where the study and show thyself approved is so important because if you're studying different Bible literatures and the ones that are made, message, the worldview, all those, you're getting a different understanding from each one of them. And you're starting to
Absolutely.
study and show thyself approved. So when you get to different
Absolutely.
parts of your life, you're getting different parts of the story. Um, Remember, just like when Joseph was sold by his brothers, uh, God already knew that was going to happen because he had to put him in a different location. He already knew,
Hmm.
Joseph knew how to tell people's dreams, interpret them. So he had to put him with the cupbearer and the cook so he can know how to tell people's dreams, to put him in a place where he had to be. Had that not happened and they not sold him, they never would have prospered. They would have went through that 7 years of famine, and it wouldn't have
Right.
been like it was supposed to be. So you have to listen to where God is trying to tell you to go, no matter if you like the direction or not. You can't
Right.
betray yourself and be like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that.
Right.
Shortcut right here. The shortcut
Right.
is the one that's taking you the long
Yeah.
distance.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And it goes back to, we, like you were saying, we can betray ourselves, because it specifically says in the Bible that beings came to this earth and had babies with some women, watchers, whatever you want to call them. They were spiritual beings that was not from here. True or false? That's what
it
the
says
Bible
that through the
says.
whole Bible.
It says that through the whole Bible. Messengers came. They came in the figure of a man. That mean their original form was not human, but they came here, had babies. They grew up to be 510 feet tall, back people, and do you know they started killing things in the earth to make sure they survived. So we have to really come out of this tradition and religious mindset and be truthful with ourselves, because even the Bible says the son of God, the sons of God, meaning they wasn't from here, came to earth and had children. So then you can look at the different things in history around the world. They say one of them said the name was Zeus. Somebody else said the name was something else. So either way, they went from earth and had children on earth. Either way, we have to come into a realization that God is bigger than just this planet.
That's true. It's interesting you say that because my thought process, and I allow my thoughts to go, but I don't allow them to venture off to where I can't control them.
Yeah.
Because I look at it as people like, well, where did dinosaurs come from? I like it says he created all. So it's just because they weren't in Mesopotamia, to, in Iraq as it's called today, but the word is Mesopotamia, Toponia, whatever it is. I'm doing messing it up. If it wasn't in that area, that doesn't mean that there wasn't dinosaurs roaming in America.
Right.
Or
Right.
what that doesn't mean that there wasn't dinosaurs roaming in Canada that we would
Right.
call it today. It wasn't called
Right.
Canada then because the true construction of the world as we see it today was all one piece of land
Right.
until it broke up. So if you
Hmm.
don't know your history, don't just believe it because scientists or someone else.
Yes.
Nothing against all scientists, but just because they tell you this is how it's always been. The
That's
platelets
not
broke
true.
up. The
Hmm.
platelets broke up and became the continents that they are. The history books, like I keep telling y'all, the history books have changed.
Yeah.
So you may need to listen to some of your elders who know a thing or two about these history books um,
Right.
because they have changed. So dinosaurs did exist long before a lot of people is on this planet. So it's
It's necessary for us to not be food and not be what's our two words for today?
well, we have like four, but the title of the series is Grace and Mercy. So I picked two titles that will go in Grace and Mercy. Betrayal and Forgiveness is the topic
Okay.
that goes into Grace and Mercy for today.
In order for us to really experience grace and mercy out of the tradition and religious mindset, is to truly understand what is the truth so you won't be betrayed. Because we can experience the grace that God wants us to experience. I'm not talking about sin. I'm talking about this grace, period. Mercy, period. the beauty of it all, whenever we can sit back and really look in our lives and say, you know what? Thank you for gracing me for being ignorant. Letting me let somebody else make me ignorant. They betrayed me by holding back knowledge. So to understand the grace and the mercy of that, to know I am loved by my creator so much that he had enough grace to just grace me to this point to make me unique enough to say, I will open up my mind, I will open up my eyes to the greatness and the mercy and the graciousness of God. I'm not going to let nobody betray me anymore. So it's going to be easy for me to forgive them. If they say something that they may think I'm crazy. They may call me crazy, you stupid, you going to hell. You can say whatever you want to say. But because I am no longer allowing myself to be betrayed by the world system that created tradition and religion to keep my mind in a box, now I can really understand the grace and mercy of God without law, without sin. So it's a totally different lifestyle, it's a totally different mindset. And that's how Jesus, the way we're supposed to live is how Jesus walked unapologetically for what he knew.
That's I picked this topic because I was doing a Bible study on my Bible app, and I was talking to someone because they was talking about, oh, it's hard to forgive this, it's hard to do that. I said, hmm, Jesus ain't never asked for an I'm sorry. He never asked nobody to say I'm sorry. I said, then on top of that, he knew he was going to get betrayed. I said, and he still didn't tell Judas or anybody else or Peter. Peter did it 3 times and he told him he was going to do it. And he never asked him to say, tell me I'm sorry. Never asked him.
Right. Never.
But we in this day and age, that's what we want. Oh, you need to apologize to me. So I told him, I said, Jesus never asked you to apologize to him. What makes you better
Mm-mm.
than him? And so that's
Right.
why I came up with the topics. I'm like, betrayal and forget. At first, it was just betrayal. But then I added forgiveness to it. I'm like, that's
Mm-hmm.
interesting. Jesus never asked us to apologize to him for what he did for us. And he never, ever wavered when he knew the people that was about to betray him. He
Right.
still
Yep.
he still died on the cross for them too. And so I'm like, man, he showed that grace and mercy for everyone. Even those that
Yeah.
betrayed him, he still did that for the betterment of the world. And that was so interesting to me. And the people I told to, they went, I ain't never thought about it like that. I'm like,
Yeah.
nobody has because they don't think about
Yeah.
it like that. We're
Mm-mm.
supposed to be have that God mindset. Why aren't you thinking like that? But
Yeah.
you hold it against other people when they do stuff wrong, but you don't hold it against yourself when you do
Mm-hmm.
stuff wrong because you want your
Mm-hmm.
stuff to be forgiven fast. You want that grace and mercy to be quick, fast, and in a hurry.
Right.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and we're willing to shoot the nail gun at people in a minute, but we hoping the nail gun is empty when it's our turn. I sure hope that thing empty
Yes.
when it's our
And you
turn.
know
Like,
what?
man, I told.
Jesus
Go ahead.
told them to go ahead and betray him.
Yeah, do it
He
quick.
told Peter, you gonna betray me? Go ahead. I know you're gonna do it. He told Judas,
Yeah,
go ahead and do it. So it's kind of like
do it
having that
fast.
God conscience. Go ahead and do what you gonna do because I already know you gonna do something. You go talking about me. You're gonna laugh at me. And that's literally where I am now. Like I'm coming to understand through the different things that I've been through to expect for people to betray me. Expect people to talk about me. I'm 45 and I'm just getting to the point where I can just expect it and don't care.
Oh, I get that. I get that. I just don't care. I already. I tell people, I say, you betray you before you betray me. Because
Yeah.
if you know you're gonna do it, then you already betrayed yourself. Because you hurting yourself before you hurt me.
Yes.
Because I already know my intentions were good. If you already set out to do bad things, then you already betrayed yourself because you know on the back end of that,
Yeah.
you're gonna be like, man, I'm so sorry for doing this. So then again, you may not. Some people don't even care that they do it. So
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
can't betray me unless I allow you to.
Yeah. That's true.
So that's
Mm.
let me ask you this question. Who is a person in your life that can hold you accountable?
Who holds me accountable?
Yeah, who's a person in your life that can hold you accountable?
I have quite a few. My dad, my son, and my best friend.
Okay.
And they hold me
Because I'm
accountable.
assuming.
They don't hold me accountable with their mouth. They hold me accountable by them believing in me, supporting me, and so that keeps me in my lane. If without saying you did this wrong, or if I say something, it's like it's a consciousness of they know what I'm supposed to do. So the consciousness of me understanding they know what I'm supposed to do, I can still be myself with them. I can put all guards down, and they can still tell me, "Nah, you know that's wrong," or "You got to do better." Or "Now you stop thinking like that. You've been in that place for too long." Those things, but the consciousness of their mind, knowing who I am, holds me accountable. Like my son, he knows that he is my motivation. He doesn't have to constantly say mama, 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 but because I know he knows who he is and his responsibility towards me and my responsibility towards him, he holds me accountable without saying, "Mama, you did something wrong." I know what I'm supposed to be doing for him. I know my spiritual responsibility and natural responsibility for him. So that holds me accountable because he knows it. I know he knows it. So if I step out that lane, he go like, "Come on," he go check me. But because I don't want him to feel, I don't want him to have to check me. I hold myself accountable so he don't have to check me. Same thing with my dad. Same thing with my best friend.
Well, you know them parents, they got that.
Yeah, yeah.
Once they hit you with that one eye open, I'm like,
If I even go to my dad and say, "Dad, I don't know about, hold on, Isha." He called me Apple. It's too much evidence. It's too much evidence of what God already did. He go keep me in that lane. He go keep me. He knows that I'm full of faith, but he's not even gonna allow me to come to him and vent. My son is not gonna allow me to come to him and just vent. I gotta have my best friend. I gotta have a solution before I start venting. I can tell them what the solution is, then they'll hear my vent. They don't want to hear my vent. They want to hear what the solution was, then tell them experience. So they don't want to hear my venting because they know who I am.
well, sometimes for me, well, because sometimes the solution is to let a person vent,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
it's because for people I know, I'll listen to them because the message for me to repeat back to them may be in what they're saying as they vent,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
because this is my God mindset, because God listens to me as I'm venting, whether it's praying or just driving down the highway. He's listening to me as I vent. So who am I to
Mhm.
cut someone else off if they come to me? Because
Mhm.
God sent that person to me.
Yeah.
The best thing for me to do is to listen to that person and to send that person back with the message they're supposed to get.
Right.
Uh,
Now they do allow me to vent. Let me make sure I say that. They do allow me to vent, and I know how much to vent to my son, how much to vent to my dad, and what to my best friend. But
that's what I was
even
about to say.
they do know, like I know who to vent what to. But even in my venting, they always do give me words of wisdom, and they will always be like, "Okay, now this is what I hear God saying to you," and it takes me through a maturity, it takes me through a healing, it takes me through a restoration, it takes me through a renewing of the mind. So I think it's important for people to have people around them that know who they are spiritually and can handle all parts of them.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say because I'll let you vent until it becomes repetitive. If you're starting to say the same thing over, then I'm like, all right, stop.
Hmm.
All right, stop. You keep saying the same thing over. Then what's the
Yeah.
solution? So you're going to just keep crying about it, keep whining about it, keep venting about the same thing. It happened. Then what?
Hmm.
What's next?
Hmm.
What are we going to do next? I say, what is the next step? What is the next process? Because one step forward or backward is still better than no steps at all. What are we doing? So it's sometimes it has to be the the voice that you hear that oh, I really need to do something. But it, but sometimes that can come off in a negative connotation too, because the person that's venting, they'll be like, oh, so you just don't want to hear me talk no more, huh? and they can hear that. So you have to be able to understand both sides. So the verbalization needs to be there for that. Let me ask this question: how can you practice self-discipline to hold yourself accountable as you grow in grace?
I hold myself accountable because I constantly ask God daily, what do you want me to do today? What do you want me to complete today? And I don't want it to sound hyper spiritual, but I hold myself accountable by what I know that I'm supposed to be producing in the earth. I hold myself accountable because I want to when you know who you are, it's easier to hold yourself accountable. Because when we don't know, it's like being on a job, a 9 to 5, and you have a title as the chief of operations. If you don't know how things are going to operate, you can't complete your own task to make sure everything is running smoothly. So we have to know our job titles, our tasks, our description as who we are in order to hold ourselves accountable. Sometimes we can't hold ourselves accountable because we don't know what we're supposed to be doing. We're just here. We're just living Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, 3 to 11, 11 to 7. Whatever we're working Monday through Friday, then the weekend coming, all we know, oh, let me just relax. Well, you just been a hamster from Monday to Friday. So the only thing you know to hold yourself accountable is to somebody else. When you become an entrepreneur or you understand your identity, you have to hold yourself accountable, and it's easier because now you know who you are. When you know you are, when you know who you are, you want to fulfill your purpose. You have a desire to fulfill your purpose. You no longer allowing yourself to be betrayed by the world system. You no longer have to keep going through this forgiveness of yourself and others continually in this cycle because you're not holding yourself accountable because you don't know who you are. When we know who we are and we know what we're supposed to be doing, it's easier to hold ourselves accountable because we enjoy doing who we are.
So once you start to figure out who you are, um, that's when it becomes easier to hold yourself accountable. The
Yes.
hardest part is trying to figure out who you are, because once you figure out your steps that you ordered or someone else ordered for you, all you have to do is
Hmm.
walk in.
That's
And
it.
once you get used to walking in your steps, even if someone else wears the same size shoe as you, it's still not yours. It's still not the steps that
Yes.
you have made to walk in. Uh,
Yeah.
I wear a size 12, but everybody can't walk in my steps because it's a size 12. You still have to order your steps. As I'm praying for all of you to have your steps when you need them, walk in your steps and see how comfortable your steps are when you need them. I also tell you that take a seat if you need to take a seat. Don't be afraid to take a seat because your steps are on their way. And you just need to take a seat because we're used to ordering our steps. But I'm ordering a seat for some of you because you need to learn how to sit and be patient and wait on the Lord. Uh, and that's important too because life will be lifing, whether you like it or not. Uh, Miss Davis, it's been a amazing show as always. Tell the dogs we appreciate them speaking the tongues back there,
I
the
will.
tongues, yeah, in God's language. Uh,
Look, I call one of them Prophet Samson. He's the shoe prophet. Because every time I'm getting ready to go to an event, some kind of way he finds his way into my room and bite up a pair of shoes, which makes me go buy another pair of shoes. I say, so he's the shoe prophet because he always pushed me to buy more shoes.
Something about that leather. Something about that leather. You're like, man, I'm gonna get. Yep.
Yes,
Please,
yes, yes.
please let everybody know how they can get in touch with you, where they can reach you at. Promote yourself.
Okay, well, as far as social media is concerned, you can find me as the Book Birth and Midwife on social media, or Nyisha D Davis, also on Instagram, the Book Birth and Midwife. I have a website, the Book Birth and Midwife. That's a part of my identity, not all of my identity. My email address is drdavis at thebookbirthandmidwife.com. And as you can hear, my cosigner is just letting y'all know I'm telling the truth in the
Yep.
background. But yes, inbox me with any questions. Teddy, it's been an honor to grace and be in your presence once again.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you taking the time to stop by once again out of your busy schedule. And y'all, I will tell you, she is a busy person. And make sure you check out the episode coming out in 2 weeks with the book I read, and you will find out all about Dr. Davis, who she is, where she comes from, what she does. There's more about her in that episode. There's a lot of God talk in that episode too. We talked about some spiritual stuff, which is the reason she's here. Matter of fact, yeah, in 2 weeks. Uh, make sure you check that out. Once you listen to that one, come back to this one. You see why we both crazy. Uh, you see why God shows us a little grace and mercy with our conversations. That's why we be laughing a lot because we know who is the head of our life, who is in the side of our life, who is in front of our life, and the back of our life. I'll leave you all with this final quote, and it comes from Ephesians 2:8. This is from the New International Version, UK, so y'all know. For it is by grace you have been saved through faith, and that it is not from yourselves, it is the gift of God. With that being said, it's been another amazing Grace and Mercy series. I don't know what I'm going to call the next one for next year, but it's going to be something grateful, something faithful, and something given to me by Most High. With that being said, I bless you all later.